Hey Rick,
Hey, Megan.
happy Tuesday. It is a
It is.
beautiful fall Tuesday.
I love it. Love it.
I know, me too. So, enough chit chat about fall. Let's get right into it. HOAs,
Hmm.
homeowners associations. We often sell homes and have a homeowners association. And when the seller is providing information to the buyer, they have to provide a copy of the CCNRs, the codes, covenants, and restrictions,
Hmm.
along with a bunch of financial documentation, meeting minutes, and any disclosures regarding any upcoming dues increases and or litigation, that sort of thing. And you send the HOA your own questionnaire. So we're
Hmm.
gonna kind of touch a base on that today because um, sometimes things can get a little wonky if you have an HOA that's not on top of things. So I'm gonna
Hmm.
read an excerpt from an email that I got this week that I forwarded to.
I know,
So
right?
I think your response to the email was that you needed some Tylenol after reading it. So
For sure.
a client who I sold a property to, I don't know, very, very long time ago, emailed me this note from, it looks like a board member from their HOA. And the question was like, how in the hell do I get out of this? Because the ship is going down. So here's just a snippet. Uh, let's just get it. She said there was abusive behavior by the board members and vendors and have threatened to quit, and we need them because of it. She added that they're not being transparent and information provided to the community is not accurate. She closed by saying, dedicated people are being devalued because of ego, a thirst for power. Governance should not be based on delusions of grandeur. The board should be protecting the interests of all homeowners equally, and this is not a dictatorship. That's my excerpt.
That was only like the first, there's one large paragraph. There's like maybe what 4 or 5 sentences, and there was like probably 300 of those sentences. It seemed
Holy
like.
smokes.
I know.
And this is why. So I'll tell you from my perspective, and then you can tell everybody from
Hmm.
your perspective, okay?
Hmm.
So when we get the homeowners association documents, we now have a California Association of Realtors form that we give home buyers that are receiving CCNRs, and it tells them sort of what to look for because we're like regular people. We're not legal
Hmm.
eagles. We don't know how to read homeowners association documents if we're a home buyer and we have a whole nother job for a living. I mean, this is like a lot of stuff to read.
Right.
So my advice to people is number one, if you're getting a loan and you're in a homeowners association, that's probably a good thing because
Hmm.
the legal eagles at the mortgage company are looking at some of the homeowners association documents and making sure
Hmm.
that there's the proper amount of insurance, and you can get into this in a minute, and reserves and
Hmm.
that sort of thing, because you as a regular person aren't going to understand what the the minimum requirement should be. Now,
Right.
also, what I suggest to people, besides actually reading it, I think that 70% of the things that I send to people, nobody reads anymore. They just sign because it's so easy to just click away and sign. But you have to read these things. Take your time. You have like 5 or 7 days usually in the contract. You have to check with your realtor to carefully read things, make a snack and sit down and read it. Okay. The next thing besides insurance and reserves, which we're going to talk about that in a second, is to
Hmm.
read the notes from the meeting and read what the public comments were and
Hmm.
that sort of thing so that you could get to what is exactly going on here, like what my client is dealing with this debacle. Yeah, that's what I have to say. Read the minutes, read the notes, get a loan if you can because they're looking at it too. Rick, what are you guys doing on your end with these
Well,
homeowner
yeah,
associations?
Yeah, well, it's a great topic because it's so relevant right now, especially after that email we read this week. And I think we can both agree that in all of our years in this business, a ton of years, that's probably the worst we've ever seen.
That's
I
the
don't
worst
know
we've
how that,
ever.
yeah. So
Mechanics liens, fraudulent
yeah, it's a
charges. Oh my,
mess.
yeah, it's a mess.
Poorly managed association. So let's look at this from a lending perspective, however. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the guidelines have changed recently with respect to condo approval guidelines. And when we talk about what lenders approve, well, the lenders actually are Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. They are the ones, as we've talked about before, the agencies we call them. They write the rule books because they're the ones who are ultimately buying these home mortgages and putting those what's called mortgage-backed securities into the secondary market.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got to be sellable. And what Freddie and Fannie call that is they call it warrantable. So it's got to be
Mm-hmm.
what's known as a warrantable condo. And so to be warrantable, it's got to meet certain guidelines and regulations.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of these guidelines, I will tell you, have changed recently in the last year or two. Because we
Mm-hmm.
look at, remember that high-rise condo in Florida that collapsed a few years ago?
Yep.
Well, that wiped out a whole lot of homeowners and not can't pay their mortgages now. A lot. That's again a very, very rare instance, extremely
Mm-hmm.
rare. However, it didn't get under Freddie and Fannie's radar. And
Mm-hmm.
so now they've changed their quote unquote their questionnaires as to
Mm-hmm.
what they want HOAs to answer with respect to the condition of the property.
Mm-hmm.
And so the questionnaires are different now, but they're going to ask for primarily about the condition of the property. Is there? I'll give you a couple examples. Um, does the HOA have any current or proposed special assessments?
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason why they're asking for that is if there's a huge repair bill, $500,000 repair bill for something, are they going to assess the homeowners to recover that expense? So
Mm-hmm.
they want to know really what they're getting to here, Megan, is how solvent is the association to be able to meet their obligations?
Right.
Because they want to be sure if there's a big issue, there's money there, enough money in reserves to cover it. So
Right.
most of the
Right.
questions anymore are related to financial, the condition of the
Mm-hmm.
property. Is there any pending litigation? Are you and currently mediating for any settlements? Things of that nature. They also want to know is how many homeowners are delinquent on their association fees.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
they're looking for how solvent. Again, it goes back to the financials. Are the homeowners paying their association fees and are they collecting the monies? The other thing is, what's a hot button right now is insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've changed their insurance guidelines. So most HOAs are covered for insurance. We're not too worried about that. But Freddie and Fannie have increased the requirements now for insurance to cover a loss. When I say loss, I mean the entire neighborhood essentially. So they got to
Right.
be mindful of these things. So no, people complain about this. I get it. I mean, it takes time. As a lender, it takes time for us to get those documents from the HOA. They don't just produce that like the next day.
Yeah.
We
And
submit these
surprisingly,
documents. Yeah.
it's bananas because usually they've had other properties recently require the same information,
Hmm.
but yet they still cannot get this together in a timely manner.
It's
It's
mind
just
boggling.
I have a saying, I'm sorry to digress here, but I say that all homeowners associations and management companies, they have a meeting once a year and they get together and they go, okay, nobody, and I mean nobody exceed any kind of expectations. Keep expectations low, keep
Yeah.
people
Right.
upset. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's how it gets done, Rick. Go ahead. I'm
Yeah. No,
sorry.
no, great point. And back to your point, these forms I'm talking about are the
Yeah,
exact same form with every lender because guess what? These forms are generated by Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. There's no
exactly. Why
rocket
is it
science here,
taking so long to get these forms
right?
done? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they fill out the same form every month, but then when we call them, they say, well, it takes 5 to 7 days, and then they want like $250 to fill it out. It's
Right.
three
Right.
pages. But
Right.
if you want to rush, that's an extra $100. You get that back in 3 days instead of 5 or 7. It's
Right.
like anyway, it's a whole nother one digress. But yeah, it just it's frustrating because we want to close the
Silly.
escrow, we want to get this deal done, and that's always at the very end waiting for the HOA. So that's just how they operate sometimes, for the
Yeah.
most part.
It's very silly. Yeah.
But the good news for home buyers, and I make this point clear, is that we're asking for this because there's protections in place now for the homeowner, for the home
Right.
buyer.
Right.
We don't want a home buyer to buy into a neighborhood where the roofs are caving in, they're not, and their
Yeah.
paint is peeling, and the balconies are falling off. Because
Oh,
guess what? Like any property, there's deferred maintenance.
right.
So over a period of years, they've got to make sure that the property's maintained and taken care of properly. And they
Hmm.
want to make sure there's enough money there to continue taking care of that property.
Right.
That's essentially it.
Exactly. Well, good. Well, this has been enlightening, hopefully for most people. And Homeowners Association, keep your eyes peeled, read your documents, and if you're getting a loan, good, because that means somebody else has got their eyes on it.
Yeah.
And hopefully you won't be looking at an email that I'm looking at right now in the future.
That will put that in our book someday.
That is going to go in the book. That is going to go in the book. All right,
Okay.
Rick, thanks for your expertise as always, and
Thank you,
I
Megan.
will
Appreciate you.
talk to you soon.
All right. See you.
Bye.
Bye.